I want to share with you some of the things that we gathered as we were traveling around the world making music and films. In a lot of the circles that I moved in, being a musician and a filmmaker and around a lot of arty types, the expression of the word unity, and especially phrases like "we're all one," I always found a little bit distasteful. And it was something that I wanted to go deeper into. So having a project like this, being the luckiest artists in the world, being able to take our music around the world and collaborate with the cream of the world's musicians, was a massive luxury, and it threw up all kinds of unexpected experiences. The way we worked it was my partner in crime, Duncan, he built this amazing mixing desk that could run off 12 volts. So that means that we could plug camera batteries into it, and we could run the recording studio for 8 to 12 hours, far away from any electricity source. If we were in the jungle or the rainforest or the roof of a skyscraper, we could work with anyone, anywhere. So we would take one bit of music, we'd go to a village, like somewhere in Mali, we'd put headphones on you and get you to pick up your drum, and you would hear our music, and you would start playing along with it. And then when we got to the next place, maybe someone's house in China, we would put the headphones on them, and they would hear our music, and then they would hear that African drummer, and he might be playing in a rhythm that they'd never worked with before, but right there and then, they're in the rhythm and they're in the harmony, and suddenly they're doing a fresh collaboration with a musician they're never going to meet in a culture that they've never visited. And as we traveled further and further around the world, more and more people played on all the different pieces of music, and we got this incredible diversity, and underneath it, this unity speaking through. And that was the first peculiar and exalting experience of the unity that we started to experience, was all these different diverse people all playing in rhythm and harmony on the same pieces of music, and really getting off on each other even though they'd never met. So that was level one. As we had the great opportunity to make a film while we were traveling, we thought it's actually not a very interesting film to only do lots of shots of us plugging in musical instruments. We had the opportunity to spread it to literature, to gurus, chiefs, criminals, all kinds of people with different perspectives. We could interview them about the great universal themes of life: God, sex, death, money. We would interview everyone we met. And then when we got home, we wove in all the interviews with the music. And you would get an African chief cutting straight to an Indian guru, cutting straight to a murderer in a prison in Mexico, cutting to Stephen Fry or Noam Chomsky, and all these very, very diverse people. And the more diversity that was expressed, the more unity came through underneath. And that became the real core of all the work we tried to do with One Giant Leap. And as we went into the questions, we wanted to ask the questions a little bit left of what people usually like to talk about. For instance, in more than half of the world, there's no rule, there's no law that says that you can't rape your wife. Because in most countries, your wife isn't allowed to give evidence against you. So if you come home drunk and you want to rape your wife in many places in Africa or in China or Japan, places like that, she can't do anything about it if you want to rape her, and that is the law for more than half of the world. Other sexual things we wanted to talk about was how peculiar pornography is when you really take a step back and look at it. If some aliens landed on planet Earth and you had to show it to them and explain it to them, well, you know, but people kind of like to watch this, mainly the men, and they hide it from their wives, and it's kind of, the aliens would think we were very, very strange. We wanted to get people's views about that. We especially wanted to get views on all the masks that we wear and all the roles that we like to play in order to fit in. And wearing masks and being a good son or a good husband or a good father or a good teacher, those roles become something we slip very easily into, and then suddenly they begin to replace who we authentically are. And so when we get too deep into a role, if I'm a housewife and I spend my life totally identifying with the role of being a housewife, when my kids grow up and leave and I've got no one to look after, suddenly I'm going to have a massive crisis about who I am. So suddenly the dangers of roles and being unconscious with them became very important. Because One Giant Leap, this project, reached many countries and many people, we would get a lot of requests, particularly from NGOs, to make music for different causes. And one of the phone calls I got more recently was from an anti-genocide organization in America who asked, could we do something for the Sudan because the referendum was coming up and they didn't want another civil war kicking off and another massive genocide. Would it be possible to do a song? And I've always thought, a song is not going to be the thing that stops a genocide kicking off in a country. If only music could be that powerful. I believe it's a very powerful force. But I didn't think, and I've never really felt when I'm asked to do a song for somebody's cause, that that is really the way to go. But I did start thinking about genocide and started to think about what is it? What is it? Is there anything that we could do? What is it that we allow these things to happen? And one of the things that became clear to me as I thought about it was that we really allow these things to happen in faraway places where people don't really look like us, where we have a strong sense of them, in places where they look strange and foreign and they're kind of used to their mass murders and their machetes and their corruption and they're not like us. Because if the mass rape statistics that are going on right now in the Congo were going on in Geneva, there would be immediate action. Not anyone in this room would stand for it, but because it's going on in the Congo, it seems like they're kind of used to it. There's nothing we can do. We'll let it pass. So that inspired me a lot as an artist to get into the idea of really working with the concept of us and them, and to try and vaporize the illusion of themness and promote the idea of usness. Because these people, as I've traveled around the world, are absolutely no different. There are small cultural differences, but everybody in their humanity, when you treat them with love and respect, will treat you with love and respect. And there is a massive unity just by being yourself that you can experience when traveling. So we got more and more into the idea of promoting the usness and vaporizing the themness. One of the projects we came up with was this thing called 15 Minutes of Friendship, which Google are helping us out a little bit with at the moment to set up. And 15 Minutes of Friendship is an idea that we could start video pen pal relationships between our children and children in some of these heavy places. Because there's nothing, anyone with kids here will agree, there's nothing that speaks of us more than our kids' friends. So if you look through the door once a month on a Friday evening and you see your 9-year-old having a 15-minute talk online with somebody in the Congo or somebody in the Sudan, they've become a friendship. Next time you hear about the statistics of a mass murder that's gone on in the Congo, you're going to have a very different relationship to that piece of information. So we're really excited to get the 15 Minutes of Friendship project up and running. There's no more unity, though, to be found, and this is what we discovered in our second film, which was called What About Me? There's no more unity to be found than in our collective insanity, than in the fact that everyone, including all of you in this room, are totally mental. And we all turn up to work every day and we have to pretend to be a winner and be confident and be on. And if the person sitting next to you here really knew what went on inside your head, you'd all be fired and lose all your credibility. So the second project we made was much more about that, looking into our pain avoidance, looking into our shadows and all the strange ways we edit ourselves and the shame we carry around in a sack behind us. The collective insanity is something which, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could turn up for work or be with each other and take that breath and just let the madness be true, unedited, unhiding. I'm a big believer that it is this editing ourselves which is limiting ourselves in our creations, in our work, and in our relationships with the people we love. One of the exercises we've been doing with our groups has been, perhaps you do it with me right now, is to think of somebody that you really don't like. Most of you have probably already got someone in your mind. Not somebody that you don't like because of something they've done, or that could be included, but because of who they are, because of how they operate. And now have a think about what is the one adjective, the one thing about that person that you absolutely can't stand. I'll give you a moment to consider what that might be. Focus on that word. Well, I have it on good authority that that is a very large part of you. And that's probably the part of you that you've been editing the most as you go around the place. And anytime you might see yourself or other people behaving in anything close to that way, massive shame and judgment. So if you were all working with me in a group right now, I would get you to take that word and write it on a conference-type badge, maybe on this badge, and wear it proudly. And then stand up and move around the space and be in the absolute 110% fullest expression of that word that you could possibly be. Turn and look at the person sitting next to you and imagine being full permission into being in that word. It feels very edgy. But what I've discovered is that these people and myself, all of us who are doing these dysfunctional things and feeling so much shame about them, those characters, you could call it, the characters that are always interrupting and being greedy, the character that's always being disgusting in whatever way that you don't want anybody to know about, I believe that that character we carry around inside us the whole time, we actually once created that character a long time ago to get us through a very difficult part of our life. Every single crazy bit of our behavior that we're trying not to do anymore was once actually a character we needed to create to protect ourselves through a very difficult time. So you might reflect on that for a moment. Your most heinous behavior thing that you don't want anyone to know about. How was that once useful? How was that once protective for me to be able to get through something I couldn't handle? And what I urge you all to do after this conference, if you have a think about this character, if there's something that you're doing that you would like to stop doing, when I talk about harvesting shadows and turning them into rocket fuel, that character can be given a new job. Once you talk to that character, one way to do it is to put your pen in your normal writing hand, and you say, thank you very much for doing that job that I never told you to stop doing. But actually, I'm an adult now. We don't need to interrupt everybody all the time to have potatoes on our plate, or we don't need to be jumping up and down and getting into a rage. When you start putting the pen into your non-writing hand, this character will have a lot to say to you. And when you ask this character, is there anything you need? And particularly ask this character, now that my life is so different, now that I have these different aims and missions in my life, what new job could you possibly creatively do for me now that I don't need you to do that anymore? The results I've had with people writing the answer to that question have been amazing. And people have transformed behaviors that used to hold them back and be a drag in their life, have transformed them and moved them into actual employees that are propelling their lives forward. And I'd just like to leave you with one thought, if I may, that perhaps everybody you meet is a perfect mirror to help you see one of those characters that you've been hiding in a sack behind you. I recommend for 1 week to act as if everything in your external reality, every person you meet, every situation that arises, especially the really yucky, challenging ones, try for a week imagining that you have actually, in some weird spiritual way, set up this theater, this experience, this challenge with this person. Imagine that you have set it up perfectly to be able to ask yourself the question, how am I doing this? How is this a part of me? How is this showing me something about myself? Because I believe that the external reality is one enormous benevolent mirror, which is the collective intelligence of all of us pushing ourselves towards evolution. Deepak Chopra talks about the body as being an exquisite pharmacy, all day creating drugs, diagnosing, mixing drugs, administering in the perfect quantities, and you're not even aware of it. Well, I believe our emotional and our psychological bodies have the same kind of intelligence, and that we're constantly setting up situations whereby we can easily, if we dare to be vulnerable, especially with each other, we can dare to actually see it as something, though challenging, which is serving us. Thanks very much.